Intro music fades out. Hey, adventurers and history buffs. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into a tale of the high seas, defiance, and a courtroom drama that echoes through history. Prepare yourselves because this isn't just any pirate story. It's a raw, powerful look at what happens when freedom clashes with society's rules and women dare to take on the world on their own terms. We're talking about Anne, a name whispered with both fear and admiration, whose story reminds us that true courage often sails against the strongest currents. Imagine this. The sea, usually a symphony of crashing waves, falls eerily silent. The air, heavy and sour with cannon smoke, drifts across the wreckage of two ships locked in a deadly embrace. It's dawn, a gray, defeated dawn. The deck of a pirate sloop is slick with rain and blood. Ropes are torn, the mast shattered, and there, amidst the chaos, figures kneel in defeat. Women, their hair tangled with salt, their wrists bound in chains. They were once sea wolves, ghosts to merchants, terror to the crown. Now they are trophies. Navy men move among them, their boots thudding against the planks, their laughter cutting through the silence like a blade. But these women, they don't speak. One of them, dark-haired, her eyes calm despite the bruises, watches the horizon as if waiting for the storm itself to reclaim her. Her name is Anne, and her stillness, her unyielding calm, frightens even the men who hold her captive. The ship creaks, a mournful sound. Somewhere below deck, a dying man coughs, a stark reminder of the battle's heavy cost for everyone involved. The Navy captain, a man with silver epaulets and a trembling sense of duty, gives the order, "Take them ashore. The court waits." His voice holds no triumph, only exhaustion, as if even victory had begun to feel bitter. By dusk, they reach the harbor. Kingston, a city of narrow streets, smelling of tar, sweat, and judgment. The captured women are paraded through the town like offerings to order, a spectacle for the masses. Children follow, whispering tales of witches and sirens. Men spit into the dirt. The church bell tolls once, deep and hollow, as if even the heavens disapproved of their existence. Inside the courthouse, the air feels colder than the sea itself. Candles flicker, casting long, swaying shadows that dance like specters on the walls. The women are lined before a table, where three stern men sit, judges in powdered wigs, their robes heavy with the authority of empire. Their eyes avoid the prisoners, fixed instead on parchment. They read from a long list of crimes: theft, mutiny, murder, blasphemy. But the final charge lingers, heavy in the air, for having assumed the role of men. Can you imagine that as a crime? Anne's chains rattle as she's pushed forward. She meets their gaze unafraid. Behind her, another woman, younger and trembling, tries to steady her breath. Her name is Mary, though her story might not survive in many records. She had disguised herself as a man to join the crew, her secret only discovered in the prison cell. Now, both stand as symbols: Anne, of raw defiance, and Mary, of a forbidden truth. The prosecutor speaks in Latin phrases, his voice echoing through the hall like a sermon. "These women have defied divine law," he declares. "They have taken up arms against king and conscience alike." A murmur ripples through the crowd. In the gallery above, merchants and wives lean forward, a mix of curiosity, disgust, and a strange, undeniable enchantment. For all their condemnation, they cannot look away. Outside, thunder rumbles, like the ghost of the storm returning to listen. And then Anne speaks. Her voice is low, hoarse yet unbroken. "If you had been born in rags," she says, "you would know why I chose the sea." Her words don't seek mercy, they seek memory, understanding. The clerk hesitates, uncertain whether to even write them down. He doesn't. History, as we know, is often edited by the living. Hours crawl by. Witnesses are called, sailors who once fought beside them, now desperate to trade truth for leniency. Each man speaks differently, but their sentences end the same way. The women were unnatural, unfeminine, bewitched by ambition. In every word spoken, you can feel the fear, not of crime itself, but of equality, of women daring to break free from their assigned roles. By midnight, the verdict is inevitable. The judge rises, his voice steady, rehearsed. By the power vested in the Admiralty Court, under the Crown of England, you are hereby sentenced. He pauses, perhaps searching for some measure of pity within himself. None comes. To be hanged until death, that your souls may answer before God. A collective exhale moves through the room. Not relief, but ritual. The crowd came for punishment, not understanding. The gavel strikes wood. The sound is chillingly final. Yet as the guards move to take them away, Anne's gaze lifts once more to the window. Beyond it, lightning flashes across the harbor, illuminating the sea in brief, violent bursts. For a moment it looks alive, as if waiting. She smiles faintly, not in defiance, but in recognition. Freedom, she realizes, had always belonged to the water, not to those who tried to claim it. Mary weeps quietly beside her. The youngest guard, barely a man, looks away. He would dream of her face for years, not out of love, but guilt. The kind that festers when justice feels more like cruelty wearing a powdered wig. As they are led through the corridor, a priest follows, whispering prayers of salvation. But his words dissolve into the sound of rain beginning again. The same rain that had once filled their sails now soaks their shackles. Drops fall onto the courthouse floor, mingling with dust, blood, and the faint scent of salt. The sea is everywhere, even here in the heart of judgment, the heart of Wu. In the cell that night, Anne traces her finger across the wall, feeling the grooves where others had marked their names. None were women. Perhaps she would be the first. She presses her thumb into the damp mortar, leaving a print, a small defiance, destined to vanish with time. But still, she does it. Some part of her needs the stone to remember what paper would not. From the gallows yard outside comes the ominous sound of carpenters assembling the scaffold. Each hammer strike echoes like a countdown. Yet within the cell, there is no terror. Only stillness, that strange calm that visits the condemned when there is nothing left to take. The others sleep fitfully, but Anne remains awake, eyes fixed on the flicker of torchlight spilling beneath the door. It reminds her of waves catching moonlight, perhaps the last beauty she would ever know. As dawn approaches, the sky turns pale. The city beyond the prison walls stirs, fishermen setting out, merchants opening their shutters, none caring that the world had decided who would live and who would hang. For them, justice is routine. For her, it is theater. Every empire, she thinks, needs its spectacle. Every kingdom needs a woman to burn. The priest returns at sunrise, carrying a small cross. He asks if she repented. She does not answer. He mistakes her silence for pride. It is not. It is grief. For the sea, for the wind, for the brief, impossible taste of freedom she had known. Outside, the gallows waits. And though the sentence had been spoken, though the fate is sealed, there lingers a question that no judge could silence. If sin is simply the name given to a woman's freedom, then who truly was guilty? The wind carries the question out to the sea, where no man could ever answer it. And somewhere in the gray morning light, the waves begin to whisper again. What an incredible, heart-wrenching, and thought-provoking story, isn't it? Anne's tale is a powerful reminder of courage in the face of insurmountable odds and the constant struggle for freedom against societal expectations. It makes you think about who gets to write history and whose voices are silenced. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think Anne truly felt in those final moments? And do with a hint of tension. The prison door clanged shut behind them, swallowing the last sliver of daylight. Inside, The air was a heavy shroud, damp wood, wax smoke, the ghost of countless sighs. Chains clinked, marking each step as these women, accused of a crime the law feared more than theft or treason, were led to their cells. Their sin, refusing to kneel. Anne, her wrists raw from the irons, sat against the cold stone. Across the corridor, Mary, her youth already fading from hunger and the slow agony of waiting, huddled beneath a narrow, unforgiving slit of light. Words were useless here. Silence was their only companion, a pact that even prayer couldn't break. This was a place built for suffering, a crucible where spirits were meant to be forged into obedience. But some spirits burn too bright to be extinguished. Music becomes more intense, with a drum beat signifying the arrival of the priest. At dawn, the priest arrived, his robes trailing dust, his eyes heavy with duty, not belief. In his hands, a ledger and a wooden cross. Confession. The ritual began. One by one the women were brought forth, expected to recite their sins, to cleanse their souls. But what sin was there in surviving? What crime in wanting to live beyond another's command? When it was Anne's turn, she stared at the priest, her voice a murmur, but her words like iron. "You wished to cleanse my soul," she said, "but it was never yours to wash." He hesitated, marking the page with ink destined to fade, just like all records of female defiance were meant to. Her words weren't rage, they were resignation, the voice of someone who had already buried her name beneath salt water. Music softens again, becoming reflective and poignant. Outside, the rain drummed against the stone roof. Inside, the women learned the rhythm of imprisonment. The guards' heavy boots, the tolling bell signaling another confession hour, the soft moans of those whose minds began to unravel. Some prayed until their voices cracked. Others sang quietly, hymns to the sea they could no longer see. It wasn't rebellion that kept them alive, but remembrance, a fragile flame against a storm of obedience. In one cell, carved into the wall, a single word: mercy. Faint, almost erased by time and damp. Anne traced it with her fingertip, wondering if mercy had ever truly existed here. The priest said it did. The guards said it did. But Anne understood. Mercy was often just cruelty that spoke softly. One morning, Mary was taken. The warden claimed illness. Hours later, she returned, pale and trembling. A lash mark crossed her shoulder, a warning disguised as salvation. "They asked if I repent," she whispered. "I told them I dreamed of waves." Her eyes glistened not with tears, but with the untamed memory of the ocean. It was enough to make even the guard look away. Music builds slowly, hinting at a quiet strength. The days bled into weeks. The priest came less often, perhaps tired of their quiet defiance. When he did, he spoke of redemption, of a woman's soul needing to be softened through suffering, like iron in flame. But Anne and the others knew the truth. The flame wasn't meant to purify, but to erase. Anne began to change, her voice slower, her movements deliberate. When she spoke, it wasn't of freedom, but of endurance. "They will take our bodies," she said softly, "but not the story of them." This was the closest thing to prayer anyone offered in that place. Winter crept in, cold and unforgiving. Frost gathered on the iron bars, glistening faintly. The women pressed their hands to it, not for warmth, but to remember touch, proof they were still flesh, not just fading memories. At times Anne thought she heard the ocean, a low rhythmic pulse beneath the stone. Perhaps imagination. Perhaps not. History, after all, keeps its ghosts close. She closed her eyes, letting the sound carry her, the roll of waves, the snap of sails, the laughter of her crew. Freedom lived there still, untouched by verdicts or ropes. Music becomes powerful, almost defiant, with a strong emotional melody. The priest came one final time before their execution, not with a cross, but a candle, its flame flickering uncertainly, afraid of the darkness. "Do you have any last confession?" he asked, his voice trembling. Anne looked at him, not with hatred, but with a quiet sorrow he could never understand. "We confessed when we chose the sea," she said, "and the sea forgave us." He lowered his eyes. The candle dripped wax onto the floor, scarring the stone. He whispered a prayer for souls he could not save. And when he left, the candle's flame guttered, then died with a hiss. In the darkness that followed, the women did not speak. There was nothing left to say. The world above had decided their worth, written their ending in ink and judgment. Music swells, majestic and hopeful despite the tragic ending. Yet in that black silence, something unspoken endured, a shared pulse, a final defiance. They would die not as thieves, nor as monsters, but as the sea's forgotten daughters. Outside, the storm gathered again, the wind howling across the harbor. The night carried the taste of salt, faint, distant, but unmistakable. Anne turned her head toward it, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. The sea had come back for them, and somewhere beyond the walls, thunder rolled, low, relentless, merciful. This story reminds us that true freedom isn't found within walls, but within the untamed spirit. What do you think Anne and Mary's smile meant in those final moments? Let me know in the comments below. If this journey into the past resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share this video with someone who appreciates tales of resilience. Your support helps us keep these forgotten voices alive. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Music fades out slowly. To the bone, not just with its historical truth, but with its raw, unflinching emotion. Imagine a dawn, not of hope, but of a cold, stark reality. The air in Kingston was thick with mist, clinging to everything, especially the gallows yard. It smelled of wet earth and burning tallow, a chilling mix of death and devotion. The crowd gathered early, faces hidden, breath clouding the morning air. They'd come for justice, though what that truly meant was anyone's guess. Our story centers on two women, Anne and Mary. As the first bell tolled, they were led from their cell, their chains rattling softly against the profound silence. Guards, with grim, precise steps, avoided their eyes. A priest followed, clutching his prayer book, seeing not women, but souls needing redemption before the rope claimed them. The scaffold waited at the harbor's edge, sturdy, indifferent. Built of oak and iron, it groaned in the morning wind. Below it, a pit of fresh earth, ready to swallow defiance itself. Soldiers flanked the perimeter, muskets gleaming with condensation, faces hard with duty. Overhead, gulls screamed, almost mocking the macabre ceremony. Anne walked with a quiet, almost regal calm, the sea still within her. Mary beside her stumbled once, the rope between them tightening, then easing. Mary's lips moved silently, not in prayer, but in memory, repeating sea shanties she once sang under open skies. For her, the gallows wasn't an end, but the last horizon. When they reached the scaffold, the crowd surged. 1,000 bodies pressed forward, a mix of curiosity and judgment. Whispers claimed women who dressed as men deserved no mercy. Others crossed themselves, fearful of divine wrath. The executioner, masked and mute, waited, his hands steady. He'd hanged pirates before, but never these, never ones who smiled at the sea while staring at death. The magistrate stepped forward, reading from parchment, his voice dry and heavy as stone. The charges echoed: theft, murder, treason. Then, that final, chilling phrase: "and for having defied the laws of nature and of man." It hung in the air like a curse. The people murmured, as if those words alone justified everything that followed. No one questioned how law and nature had become one, or who decided such things. Anne listened without expression. When the magistrate finished, She turned her head slightly towards the sea. A pale line of silver glimmered beyond the mist, the horizon, unreachable, yet eternal. For a moment she seemed elsewhere, back on her ship, wind in her hair, hands on the helm. Then the wind shifted, bringing the sound of waves, a solemn farewell. The priest offered final rites. Confess your sins, and the Lord may show mercy. Anne's lips curved faintly. The Lord had his chance, she said. He sent us the sea instead. The priest recoiled, but there was no malice in her tone, only exhaustion, a strange gentleness born of understanding that no mercy awaited her here. He turned away, whispering a prayer for his own peace. Mary trembled beside her, her youth, her softness, a faint tremor in her voice. "I am not afraid," she whispered, though her eyes betrayed her. The executioner approached, his hands rough, adjusting the rope around her neck. For an instant, their eyes met, hers full of life, his empty with duty. He hesitated, perhaps remembering a daughter, but duty is a blade that cuts compassion first. The crowd stirred. Someone called for haste, another for prayer. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. The magistrate raised his hand. The hangman stepped back. The world waited for the signal. In that suspended moment, Anne turned her gaze to the people below, merchants, mothers, sailors. Not one of them looked truly free. She smiled, small and terrible. "You watch because you fear becoming us," she whispered under her breath. "But your chains are only quieter." A moment of pause. Music swells slightly, then softens. The trapdoor fell. For a heartbeat, only the rope snapping taut, a single sharp note that silenced the world. The bodies swung gently, moving with the morning wind. The priest lowered his head. The crowd exhaled as one. The ritual was complete. Justice, they believed, had been done. But justice had no smell, no shape, no mercy, only silence. The soldiers dispersed, then the magistrate, his robe trailing mud. The hangman removed his mask, wiped his hands, and stared. He had killed many, but none who seemed so unwilling to die. By noon the crowd was gone. Only gulls remained, circling lazily above the scaffold. The sun broke through the fog, indifferent and warm, lighting the rope until it gleamed like gold. Beneath it, two shadows stretched long, their final mark upon a world that denied them everything but this ending. Later, a cart arrived. The jailer noted 2 lines, no names. The clerk wrote, "Piratica mulier, executed by order of the crown." The ink bled slightly, smudging, as if the record itself resisted permanence. The bodies were taken beyond town, to an unmarked field where the sea could be heard, but not seen, buried under quicklime and silence. That night, the wind changed. A storm rose without warning, tearing through the harbor. The gallows splintered under lightning, burning briefly before the rain extinguished it. The townspeople called it coincidence. The sailors called it memory. In the prison, empty cells echoed with dripping water. Guards avoided the walls where the women had sat, where a faint handprint lingered. The priest couldn't sleep. Anne's voice haunted him, her calm defiance, her terrible clarity. He would carry it for life, a splinter of truth beneath his faith. And out beyond the harbor, under the black churn of waves, something seemed to move. Not spirit, not body, but the lingering breath of rebellion. The sea was restless again, whispering to the shore in the language of the lost. It did not mourn them, it remembered them. And somewhere between storm and silence, a promise was made, that what had been buried unjustly. Today, we're diving deep into a story that proves even in the harshest landscapes, courage, kindness, and a little bit of unexpected loyalty can bloom. This isn't just a tale. It's a reminder that true healing often comes from the most surprising places. So grab a comfy seat, because this one's going to stick with you. Imagine a world where a doctor's healing touch is seen as a curse, where fear trumps gratitude, and where an innocent boy and a forgotten dog become unlikely heroes. That's exactly where we're headed. Our story begins in a desert town, under a sky so still it felt like the world was holding its breath. The kind of silence that's less peaceful and more ominous. Dr. Nero, a man whose hands had saved countless lives, stood by his clinic window, his face etched with years of hard-won wisdom and a secret he was desperately trying to keep from a young boy. Downstairs, that boy, Eli, scrubbed the porch steps, humming a tune, trying to drown out the growing tension in the air. You see, the townsfolk had stopped coming, not because Nero failed them, quite the opposite. He was a miracle worker. But whispers had replaced gratitude. They said his medicine was unnatural, that he was playing God with the devil's tools. And after a recent tragedy involving the sheriff's wife, that fear had curdled into something ugly. Blame. Eli heard the first stone hit the door, a dull thud against the wood. Then came the voices, angry, slurred, rising from the heat-baked street. "Come out, Doc!" someone shouted. "Nay, we know what you did." Nero didn't flinch. He walked slowly down the stairs, his boots heavy, each step a testament to the weight he carried. Eli looked up, eyes wide with a mix of fear and fierce defiance. "Stay inside," Nero said, his voice quiet, calm. But Eli shook his head. "They'll hurt you." The doctor almost smiled. Almost. "They'll try." Outside, a crowd had gathered. A dozen men, some drunk, some scared, most just looking for someone to blame. They carried rifles, shovels, torches, their faces glowing red in the setting sun. "You let her die!" the sheriff's deputy barked, his voice trembling with rage and grief. "You pumped her full of that foreign poison. Now look where it got her." Nero met his gaze. "I gave her morphine. It was the only thing that eased her pain." "You mean you killed her?" someone cried from the back. "You killed her and buried your sin in science!" The air cracked. Another stone shattered a clinic window. Eli flinched. Nero stood firm. "I won't argue with grief," the doctor said, his voice low, steady. "But you will not bring violence into this house." "This ain't a house anymore. It's a curse," another man yelled. "You brought sickness here, and that boy, God knows where you found him." The crowd murmured, shifting like a living, breathing thing. That was the moment Nero understood. This wasn't about medicine anymore. It was about fear. Fear of progress. Fear of death. Fear of the unknown. And the boy, Eli, he was caught in the middle of it. But Eli, fueled by an unwavering loyalty, wasn't about to stand by. He stepped out before Nero could stop him. His voice, though cracking, carried strong through the tense air. "He saved me. He saved my pa too, when nobody else would." For a moment, the men hesitated. A few even lowered their weapons, caught off guard by the boy's unexpected outburst. But the deputy, consumed by his grief, wasn't swayed. He raised his rifle, making his intent clear. "You step back inside, boy. This don't concern you." "It does," Eli shouted, tears stinging his eyes, his voice trembling with a raw, undeniable truth. "You're all just scared." His words hung in the dry air, echoing the fear that had gripped the town. For a brief moment, even the wind seemed to return, carrying a faint scent of rain from somewhere far away. Then, before the silence could break, a sound came from behind the clinic, a sharp, urgent bark, unmistakably close. Nero froze. Eli's head snapped around. The men, their focus momentarily shifted, turned towards the noise, weapons lowering in confusion. From the shadows beyond the corral, a shape emerged, mud-streaked, limping, but undeniably alive. It was the dog. The same hound Eli had found half dead outside room 702 weeks ago, the one that hadn't stopped barking that fateful night. Its ribs showed through its matted fur, a testament to its struggle, but its eyes gleamed with the stubborn fire of survival. Eli's breath hitched. "Nero, he found us." The dog staggered forward, growling low at the men standing between them and the clinic. It wasn't a large dog, but there was something fierce and wild in the way it planted itself beside Eli, protective, unyielding. The deputy frowned, uncertainty clouding his rage. "What's that mutt got to do with anything?" "Everything," Nero said softly, his voice regaining its quiet authority. "That animal dragged a man out of a burning stable last winter. You called it a miracle then." The doctor's words rippled through the crowd. Recognition flickered in a few faces. Memories stirred. The hard edges of their fear seemed to soften, just a little, under the weight of remembered kindness. "He ain't a curse," Nero continued, his gaze sweeping across the faces in the crowd. "He's proof that something broken can still save lives." For a moment, no one spoke. The sun dipped lower, painting the street in gold and blood red. The dog stood between Nero and the men, chest heaving, ready to fight if needed. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly one by one, the townsfolk began to step back. Not out of forgiveness, not yet, but out of shame. Out of the uneasy, dawning understanding that maybe, just maybe, they'd been wrong. The deputy lowered his gun completely. "You keep your miracles to yourself, Doc," he muttered, his voice devoid of its earlier fury, tinged now with a grudging respect. "But if anything else happens in this town, we'll be back." He turned, and the others followed, their shadows stretching long across the sand as they disappeared down the road. Silence fell again. Nero exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and sorrow, the tension slowly draining from his frame. Eli knelt beside the dog, burying his hands in its coarse fur, his tears now tears of relief. "He came back for us," the boy whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Nero looked toward the horizon, where the last light was fading, painting the world in hues of purple and orange. "Sometimes," he said quietly, a profound weariness in his voice, "the world gives you one more chance to do right, just once more." The dog leaned against the boy's leg, panting softly, a quiet, steadfast presence. The clinic's broken window glinted like a fresh wound in the fading sun. And somewhere deep within that fragile calm, something was shifting. A sense that this was not an end, but merely a fragile pause before a new beginning, a reckoning, a new chapter in the desert night. What an incredible story, right? It just goes to show how easy it is to let fear cloud our judgment, and how sometimes the most vulnerable among us, a boy and a dog, can bring clarity and courage to a tense situation. It reminds us that empathy and understanding are powerful forces, capable of disarming even the angriest crowd, and that sometimes the greatest heroes aren't just the ones who heal with medicine, but the ones who inspire us to see the humanity in each other. If this story resonated with you, if it sparked a thought or brought a tear to your eye, please hit that like button. Let me know in the comments what you think was the most powerful moment in this tale. Did Eli's bravery surprise you? What about the dog's timely arrival? I love hearing your thoughts. And if you want more stories that challenge, inspire, and entertain, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure.